I looked up the first person I seen was the PO.
Oh no.
So dude, I thought you was dead.
So we got the motor and tranny dropped in this new frame, and the primary didn't line up exactly true, so we have shimmed the motor up just a touch in the back so that it'll line up with the transmission just right. This is one of those crucial things. If you don't get this just right, you're asking for primary leaks, and this has a wet primary on it, so we definitely want to make sure everything's lined up correctly. So
I think I'm gonna get dry clutch like you got.
we're getting ready to loosen all the motor mount bolts and put small shims under the back part of the motor to raise it just a touch, and that should get us
It's a nice bike.
kind of where we need to be with the transmission. It'll take 2 or 3 test fittings to make this work.
So how did you get the basket out of that?
Out of what?
That one you're working on?
What do you mean?
Clutch basket.
You just unbolt the pressure plate, and the main clutch hub nut is right there behind the throttle bearing, like all of them. It just looks different because it had a pressure plate, not the kind of pressure plate you're used to.
Right.
You know. We're not taking them out; we're just loosening them. Good. You probably have to put a wrench on this back one.
Size.
9/16
Where you at?
over there.
So my buddy Ryan came out to see me play for a little while the other night, Dave.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I've been aiming to get out, but no, use a regular box in. Here. Where was you playing at?
Glen Lake Liquors in Buckner.
What?
Little boy had brain cancer, so volunteered for the show.
How much money did you guys raise?
$7,000.
$7 grand.
I put in a few nights gigging at the old Mousetrap
Yeah.
and Ardell's. You remember Ardell's?
Yeah.
Oh, Nashville thought they had the world's biggest dive. They ain't been to Ardell's in Buckner.
Hey, Mousetrap's for sale.
Is Cotton still on that thing?
No, it's across the street.
Well, that place is the.
Mom Glenda bought it.
I think old Cotton Harvest is dead now, ain't he?
Yeah. Glenda bought it, we remodeled it. She died.
I was gonna say, it was wiggling there a little bit.
She went through each one of the kids' hands and they sold it to Renee Jackson. She shut down, got it for sale.
Push on that motor forward and see if we can lift the rear end of that up enough to get shims in. Okay, that'll be good. That'll work. These back bolts probably have to come all the way out. When you get up, there's a groove in the cylinder. Pull that bolt.
Ardell's. Pat's Key bought it. Turned it into a jump shop. Now it's sitting empty.
I'm surprised that building's still standing.
Hey, foot and a half hour square was cutting metal in the ceiling. Oh, foot and a half out. Depot.
When do you wanna do that swap on the bikes?
Ain't ready, get that motherfucker running.
I'll swap you out right now.
Kinda like the old bagger, man.
I do too.
You ride it so that you anywhere you want.
That's what I like.
I don't wanna ride with it fucked up, you know.
Yeah.
It's got a new rebuilt engine.
That'd be a good swap. Good.
It's a good bike.
It's a lot lighter than I thought it would be.
It ain't got all that shit on it.
Yeah, I was just saying, when I moved it, I was like, this thing's light. Oh, shit.
Evo style fucking clutch?
I need to
Right.
get pressure on that side to move it straight up.
Well, we just gotta get the shim under them when it's straight. Okay.
It's a little different, not a whole lot.
Come on, don't want that.
Oh, the good ones will play. Fix the paint, spots, bust it out.
I tilt it, can you see where that washer needs to go?
Should be,
Yep. Was there a lock washer on that side?
Who's on top?
Yeah, there's one on the bottom.
Yeah. My hand can't reach out.
Okay, now we got the motor shimmed up. Just barely any shim at all. And now we're gonna pre-fit the primary, run a few bolts in to keep everything in place. And then we're gonna lock down a couple of the, we're gonna lock down 3 of the motor mounts and lock down the transmission in its place. And then we gotta pull this back off because this one bolt, back motor mount bolt, we can't tighten with the primary on. You can, but you spend hours trying to get in there with a knuckle and all kinds of different crap to make it work. It's just as easy to put the primary on, line it all up, tighten everything down except for that one motor mount, and then come back and hit that motor mount.
You guess where your magnet is?
Green top.
Yeah, top of the green toolbox. Hold this down.
Didn't they go over the top there? Didn't they both go over the top there?
Nope. No, this does.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, so the main thing we want to make sure matches up is this motor part right here, that seal, and make sure the transmission hits that pin and comes together. Now what we're going to do is throw a couple of temporary bolts in. I've already got some stuff in the primary here. And we're going to tighten transmission and motor in its place, then we're gonna do the motor mounts and a couple of transmission bolts. We'll see, I need a extension, a 1/2 inch drive socket, and once this is all locked together, the motor and the transmission are all physically in line. Once that's in line,
How big an extension?
we'll tighten down those bolts. Just, yeah, that's fine. No,
16 discs.
Scooter's
1/2
total.
inch.
1/2 inch. Maybe that's 6 inch.
Yep. Ryan's from England.
Ireland.
I asked for a 1/2 inch drive. You know, he's over there looking for metric shit, so.
He gives you 8/16. I made friends with this woman on Facebook from England. She called me one day, you know, on Facebook. And I said, just keep calling me every day, tell me just a story, something stupid, because I love her accent.
Oh, yeah.
She couldn't understand, I was iced tea. She could not get that,
Right.
because they're pretty picky about their teal there, I gather.
Well, they
Oh,
don't-
yeah.
They don't do iced tea, it's
Yeah.
hot tea.
That's an insult.
And hot beer, ale. I'm sorry, I ain't drinking no hot beer.
I don't know, I love that Guinness. Ooh. That's a meal when you drink Guinness. I like it. Just got a little Irish whiskey in the bottom of it and down it.
I had a girl from England that friended me on Facebook years ago. Turns out it was Allie O'Shea. You know who Allie O'Shea was?
Nope.
The little red-headed freckle girl in the old classic movie. I'm trying to think of what it was.
Annie,
Annie. Yeah, she's still on my Facebook. We still talk. The original Annie.
you know you got hacked?
Yeah.
It's really John from
No, this woman gets on there posting your pictures. Anybody know this guy? I do. He said, well, you friended me and then asked me about who died in an accident or some shit. So
Oh, I get all kinds of crap. Especially when you start talking Instagram. We need a rail of Allen wrenches.
Just right there
They're right behind me, I think.
on the bench.
Yep.
Yeah, I get so many hooker requests from.
Give him my number.
Hell, one sent me a price guide the other night.
Price guide.
Yeah. $20 for nude photos, $50 for a meetup, $100 for sex, $200 any way you want it.
So how the hell do you loosen this?
No, shouldn't have to. It's probably, there's probably a nut on each side. Okay, this side's locked, so you just gotta loosen that side. The axle locks in on this side. All those frames were different.
I've been watching an old episode of Saturday Night Live.
The old episode of
Yeah, I got in trouble for letting the grandkids watch Up and Smoke the other day.
That's a good child's movie right there. I watched it when I was young.
I had the album.
When did that come out? That was
Big
what,
Bambi.
70s?
Shit, now I'm telling everybody how old I am.
Yeah.
I had the lacquer album right after the movie. You put it on your turntable and listen to the whole thing.
You said it there, turntable.
Okay, so the primary locked right in. Everything's good and tight against the motor and transmission. The next step is we're gonna lock down these motor mounts now. The front two and this back third, and then we gotta pull the primary off, lock that one up. And then we can put it all back together and then we can lock down the transmission. It's a process, but if you want something right and not leak, everything has to be in alignment. You get one thing barely out of alignment and you'll never get this thing to not leak on primary.
Need that ratchet.
Up in smoke, where my money goes.
What year does that smoke come out? It was 75, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there,
I was young. I know that.
70s.
I didn't know what weed was back then, but I sure enjoyed that movie.
My brother had this chair that looked like an egg. And it was full of speakers.
I remember those.
Well, he had this habit of dipping these toothpicks in LSD. So I was sitting in that chair eating toothpicks, took my boss by 10. Had the impact.
Yeah, I remember being 40 years being a musician. I've never had an alcohol problem or a drug problem. That's a plus.
I eat all I need. I don't have
Yeah.
problems with it at all.
There's never any problem. We always have plenty of it. That's like the old saying, remember, if someone comes up and offers you drugs and they want too much for them, just say no.
Is that how it went?
Yeah. Tighten it down. Put the big arm on it.
We'll do that.
Once this thing's locked in, we don't want it moving around. What you looking for?
The wrench.
It won't fit over there.
There you go.
Go get a bigger one. That's good right there. We need that pulled out of the socket. Know where that's at.
That's it.
Tight, is it? Grab push rods, electric one. There you go. Ryan had to hold that one of yours on a bolt and went to spin it, and he flipped him over in the floor.
That one can break it loose.
That's gonna be obnoxious for the video. People be grabbing their volumes on their computer.
Most people watch them on phones.
That's good. So now we got the motor mounts tightened down. Tranny's setting in place. I want to get all the bolts in, pull the tranny back to where it's supposed to be. And I better say transmission, or we're liable to wind up with bad reviews from YouTube for using the word tranny. But so, well, after I get this snugged up, Ryan's going to jump underneath the transmission there. There's 5 bolts underneath the transmission that are going to be nuts that are going to have to be tightened. As soon as I get these snugged, that way we know the transmission's in place, then he can start tightening those. And once all that's done, we can finish putting this primary back together, get the clutch back in, get the compensator back in. The thing about this primary, when we took it apart to pull it from the other bike, I'm not gonna say what brand of motorcycle it was from, but it they did something crazy. There was no compensator in this, just a straight gear, geared up to just be kind of direct chain drive. It'd be great for a drag race situation if you're drag racing the motorcycle all the time, but for using it for just general purpose riding, no compensator is going to make this thing vibrate like hell. And that was one of the things, one of the complaints he was having was he was getting a lot of vibration from this bike. Wanted me to go through the transmission to make sure, because it felt like it was coming from the transmission. And when I found out that it had a straight gear drive in the front instead of a compensator, we kind of expected that was most of the vibration. So what we're doing is we're gambling, and the transmission doesn't feel bad at all. We thought maybe what are we pulling? We thought maybe that vibration is coming from not having an actual compensator in it. So that's the next deal, is once we get this all together, of course, we'll test it. If all the vibrations are gone, then my assumption was correct, and it was not having an actual compensator in it was what was creating the problems. Now, if we get it all back together and with a compensator in it, and it's still got a vibration, then we're gonna have to pull the tranny out of it. But I'm pretty sure on my gamble we'll be okay. But all we had to do is shim that motor once, and that put everything in line. So that all worked out to be good. Two outer bolts on this engine case. For the primary, we'll be ready to put the primary together. As soon as I get the right Allen wrench. Now, I would suggest, if you haven't done this before, probably check torque specs on all these inner primary bolts. The inner torque specs are probably somewhere around 25 to 35. Frankly, I usually I'll torque them and then go a little more. But I've done so many primaries over the years that I just pretty much hand tighten them, and I know about how far I need to go, because I over torque them just a little bit, because I've seen way too many of these come apart, and that usually spells catastrophe. So we'll be back in just a minute and start installing the rest of the primary. Okay, what Ryan's doing right now is locking down the transmission. We've got all the primary locked back on, all the motor mounts are tight. He's getting underneath it. There's 5 nuts underneath that, and they all have to be tied down to the frame there. Everything is lined up, everything fits good, and we're down to tightening up the tranny, and after that I'm going to be working on the other side, doing putting the primary together. Now some of these get a little tricky. Some of them you got room on, but a lot of times it's just about as easy to do this as it is anything. Get this set up. Get the primary chain wrapped around it. And I'll just start that clutch hub right there like that. Now this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what they had in place of a compensator. You notice there's no compensation spring or anything on this. This was direct drive. They were probably using this to drag race, so they didn't want any give in that primary setup. Just direct drive. But that's where I believe his vibrations were coming from that he was feeling. It was probably normal for this type of setup because the chain has no give with no compensator. I had an older style compensator on the shelf that was good. This is basically like 84 to 99 type style compensator. Instead of the gear going directly on, you have to put this on. Once that's on, and this rides on the back of that. See how that can spin? And then we need this part. Notice the teeth here and the teeth right here. These are the ramps. And those ride in together. And when this is the outer spring, so as that chain jerks on this, motor jerks on the chain, you see how this pushes this against this spring. This is why they call it a compensator, is because it basically compensates for what should be what we're looking for to cure that vibration. I got to run over here for a minute and grab the right compensator nut for this. This can get a little tricky getting these splines lined up. Lightly tapping this. I can tell I'm in the splines, but she's just giving me a little bit of issue. And this clutch hub nut is left-hand thread, opposite what the compensator is. I'm slowly working it on.
That big impact.
There she went. And I always fill those threads with red Loctite once this is tightened down. Just a little bit of extra precaution. Okay, so get the primary together. You want about an inch or just about 3/4 of an inch of play right there in that primary chain before you lock this down. Now we get to spin these down, lock them in place, and put the clutch hub back together, basically. Now on the starter, this is what connects to that jack shaft we just stuck in on the other side. There's a short side, make sure that focuses, and there's a long side, and there's a snap ring in the middle. The long side goes to the starter. The short side is going to go onto the jack shaft, which is here. Remember, your belt has to go in before all this, so you're going to have to hold the belt down before you slide this in so that that'll line up and catch this shaft. That's the starter is what engages that jack shaft. That bushing go all the way in.
Yep.
Okay. So hold that bushing in from that side, and I'm going to go ahead and insert this starter. Remember, this hot wire in your starter position wire goes up. You want to get that on that shaft, have somebody hold that so that it doesn't push the shaft back out while you're getting that on. Now that's lined up. There's a guide pin right here, so it's on a guide pin. Now the next step is to put in these two bolts.
Going in.
Trust me, you want to put this starter in now, because when we start putting the oil tank in, that's when everything gets tight. There's the other bolt. probably want to grab a socket head one and go ahead and finish tightening those. Now this is where that jack shaft has to go into the starter. You need to push that back in to recess that spring. You're gonna find a little groove that this sets in. And trust me, if that back washer that has the tab on it doesn't set in that groove, as soon as you hit the starter on this, it'll spin this right out. This is a 5/16.
Yeah. I've seen it on the Allens.
Grab the ones in my drawer.
I thought that ones this was. Where did it from?
As you push that in, you can start this screw. If you don't push that in, you can crank on this screw and it's not going to start. And I will say this, do not over tighten this screw. You don't want to spend the rest of the day trying to drill out this tiny screw out of that starter, because that's what'll happen. You'll break that very easily. Grab me that pair of channel locks down there, Ryan. And trust me, we're not putting too much pressure on this, so we're just going to grab that jack shaft gear lightly and tighten this up. Like I said, you don't want to over tighten this. Small wrench, put a little bit of Loctite on the bolt. And then there's a tab right here. You want to make sure that there's a flat on that nut and hit that tab with that. Now, when we get ready to put the primary cover back on this, which we're not going to do right now, because I'm waiting till last till we put the clutches in and all that stuff. Put some grease down in the primary cover, just some axle grease, and that way this is plenty greased. And Ryan's tightening down those screws over the bolts over there for the starters, so we know those are good and torqued. Earlier we installed these pivot bearings. This bolt will go through the frame. You'll line these pivot bearings up. Grab a hold of that thing. And once you line those up, there's a bar that goes across this and bolts it all into the frame. So I'm gonna set the camera up behind the table here so you guys can get a view at it, because we'll be on both sides of the bike. Putting the swing arm into the frame at this point. Okay, an afterthought before we put the swing arm in, we're going to go ahead and get the oil tank mount, because when you get the swing arm in, it covers up this, and then you got to get in there with a wrench, and it's just as easy to do it now. This is the rear oil tank mount. It has an indentation. This is for the actual battery strap that comes through to strap the battery down. So this goes to the inside. This bolts on the outside of the frame like so. So we're going to go, I need a lock washer. And we got a regular washer down here. And the bolt comes in from the battery side. And I'm going to leave this loose right now. These go on and they screw down right here, because your oil tank is rubber mounted. Because you'll have a rear mount and a front mount for this oil tank. You wanna grab the oil tank?
Put it that side.
Yep. Of course, a lot of this stuff that's going in here is already used, because this stuff came off a different bike. And well, okay, so we had to pull this mount back out just temporarily. Ryan's putting a hot cable for the starter through the front left corner of the oil tank, because it'll be up here. Now we can slide this with those two rubber mounts, will go right in there. And now we line everything back up.
Push on there.
Get it.
You got a better angle there?
Yep.
You get that one on there?
Yeah. I usually try to mount this bracket as high up as I can get it. If you want to go ahead and tighten those, looks like a 1/2 inch. Hold that bracket up while you're tightening those. I'm going to get some 1/4 nuts for the oil tank. Pop a couple of small washers on there. These are going to be 1/4 nuts with a, you'll need a 7/16 wrench to tighten these down. Go ahead and get that side of you on.
Before the rest of it.
And you'll need 7/16 wrench for these two nuts back here. This is the front oil tank mount right here. We'll turn the camera around here in a minute where you can see it. You got that? Now I like to go ahead and put a bolt through this mount in this position and put a nut on it. This nut is going to become the spacer, because not all these frames are created equal. I've kind of test fit this one. But this will go in, this oil tank mount, that rubber mount will go right there. And that bolt will go there. Oh, we need a washer. It's a lock washer. And that is going to hold that tank up there nice and close to the frame where it belongs. Give us some access underneath that. I got to grab a 1/4 for this. Now we'll get the swing arm up here and get it ready to go in. This can get kind of tricky, so this has got to kind of squeeze in this frame. So what I like to do is take a hammer, because these are pretty stiff little bearings. And we want to push us forward so that this side is flush. So when we go into the frame, that will allow it to slide in easier. If you got those the opposite direction, you'll figure out that nothing wants to go in. So that pivot bearing that's on the inside of that swing arm is going to go in. That bolt will go into that pivot bearing, but we have to have this just flush with that, because there's a piece that goes in the middle of that. And while I'm at it, I might as well get this side in. There we go. And this right here is what the pivot bolts screw into. And here in a minute, we're going to take a screwdriver and put right in there. And that will get us to where we need to be. Let's spin this pivot bar. In the center of that pivot bar, there's a hole so that you can lock that pivot bar.
Long-winded bolt, isn't it? That's going to snap this if I pull back. Does it say it would be better if I hold this bolt?
Well, if we have to have another socket that size.
Another one that big.
Okay. And the swing arm is on and it should move. Yeah, no problem.
Freedom.
So swing arms on, oil tanks in, starters in. Tomorrow we'll get the neck put together and front end on. Fit this thing for the sheet metal. Sheet metal's got to be painted. Somebody did a horribly ugly yellow paint job on this bike when it was on the yellow frame. And we're doing custom paint on all this. So tomorrow we'll mock up all the sheet metal and get it in the paint booth. Believe it or not, this thing's got to go out of here on Friday to Hog Rock.
Tomorrow's Thursday.
And tomorrow's Thursday. So I got one day to get everything painted. And actually, the Hog Rock's not until the following week.
Next week.
We got one more week on it, thank God. I was about to freak out. I'll probably have stuff in the paint booth 2 days. We'll have to give clear time to dry, but it's getting some airbrushing on the tanks. We got a few buttons to tie up, some hoses. The oil tank from the other frame was different than this frame uses. So it's getting all new hoses. We gotta get the clutch cable on, trapdoor cover on, get all the training stuff done, and we're getting close. The last thing that'll happen is the wiring will get done, and then the sheet metal will get mounted, and it'll go out here to one happy new dude. So everybody hang tight for the next episode. Okay, I'm gonna show everybody how to do this. They make a tool for this, and trust me, the tool's much easier to use, but if you can't find the actual tool to install these race cups into your new frame, you can go to the hardware store, get a piece of all thread, a couple of big nuts, some washers, and what we're gonna do, you're gonna need a spacer because it's impossible to find the right size washer. Find the other nut here. There we go. And we'll put these in like this. And we're gonna put the other nut on. We installed the first one already. You can do these at the same time, but they're kind of a pain to keep straight until you get them started good. And trust me, these are machine fit, so they are really tight to try to get put together. And once we get those in, ready to go, Ryan will be back here in a minute to help me. And we're going to start pressing this in. You know, I spent $10 at the hardware store grabbing this stuff today. I could go get the right tool, but most people don't have that tool. And most people don't want to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get the tool. So I'm showing you how to do it hardware style. Easy hack. I'm gonna need a couple crescent wrenches. You spot the big crescent wrench. And the dead blow.
There you go.
Okay, grab hold of this one. By the way, these race cups have been in the freezer overnight. We try to shrink them best we can. And you kind of want to work fast as you can. That way, see that a minute. That look like it's going in straight.
Mm-hmm. It does now.
Usually you get about halfway in, you can
Kind of straightens up.
bet it's still straight. And then you can usually tell it's at one point about halfway through, it gets a little easier and you're going, okay, it's straight now.
Like right there.
Yep.
You gotta throw your shoulder out now.
Got easy. I about fell down. Got real easy there. See now it's
Oh yeah, I felt that. I felt it down here.
You can use an impact and deep well to do this, but
No more.
and it'll get solid and you know you're there. And there you have it. Iron Blackbird cheapo hack. Now this piece right here, we ordered a special set of head cups. These slots right here are your fork stops. There's a small setup, so this will turn so far. This is going to bolt into the bottom tree, so when that tree turns, it'll only turn so far. That way you got internal fork stops. And the actual tool that you buy to put these in actually fit the cups perfectly. So when you start to tighten it up, it straightens them out right away. If you do it my way, you just got to be careful. Make sure you're even all the way around and it's pulling in okay. Otherwise, you're going to get it half cocked in there, and it's not gonna go well. Okay, so now we're going to put this guard in and try to get it bolted in. This is basically a dust shield to keep water and everything out of your electronics and battery compartment and all that stuff. So. Washer. Got one?
Got one just needing that.
There you go.
Sure, you need one with the belt.
Is this?
I'm in one, this one's at an angle to the horn.
Probably if you tighten this one. Let me get a wrench. When you tighten this one, it'll pull that up to the right spot.
So we're just off an 1/8 inch.
Okay, you're gonna need 7/16 for that over there. You need to grab a socket or. Pull that wrench to the outside. Oh,
Yeah.
forgot that was there.
I was saying, you gonna be here all day?
See that? Drops right in. Go ahead and put the big arm on that. Go ahead and get that tight. There you go.
Yeah, it needs to come your way. Just
Well, that's okay. Let's try to get the axle in so we can start figuring out the spacing on this rear wheel. Go ahead and roll it back. Okay. Need a dead blow. Okay, and tomorrow we'll figure out the spacing, get the wheel locked in, get the front end on this thing. She's coming together.